the OhioRAAM Show.
Well, this is Lee Kreider here.
And this is Jim Lawyer here.
And this is the OhioRAAM Show, a show about ultra cycling. And Jim will tell us where this all comes from.
Yeah, basically, the show is kind of sponsored by our Ohio time stations. We run 3 of them here in Ohio, 41 in Oxford, 42 in Blanchester, and 43 in Chillicothe. And that's the one basically I'm stay at now. Blanchester is run by a couple of great people, and so is Oxford. But basically, we help all the riders come through and crews and teams and try to get a lot of people out to cheer them on.
And we got some great guests here tonight. But before we get to them, we want to make a couple of observations. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you'll put a comment or a question there in the comment or question line, we got our fingers crossed that they'll actually show up here for us. And Jim's watching that pretty closely to see that we don't miss anything. And I also want to point out that we got a couple of shows coming up we want to tell you about. On the 25th of October at 8 p.m., Sunday the 25th, we're going to stay here in Ohio. We're going to have Giovanni Prosperi. He comes from Italy, but he's moved here to Ohio, so we claim him. He won the Hoodoo 500, I believe, this year. And then on the 2nd of November, we're going to go to Poland with Remek Sodzinski. We got somebody here that should help us with that name, but I hope I got it right, Remek, who is starting the Race Around Poland. And that's quite an event. It's a long event. It's new. And we thought we would talk to them and give them a little boost regarding that. So who we got on the show with us today?
2 great female ultra cyclists, Valerie Litznerski and Christie Tracy.
Well, hi, Christie. Hi, Valerie. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good.
Valerie, I'm not going to sing the song about Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Jim's even too young to remember it, but we're glad we have someone from Kalamazoo. We're not going to sing about it.
Thank you.
So now both of you women were in the race around, or the Texas time trials this year. How did you do? Tell us and talk to one another.
Well, Christie set the overall course record for the 24-hour race, men and women. So she's not going to say this for herself. We'll happily announce that for her. So she passed. She beat everyone. I think that's pretty clear. So congratulations. It's a super strong race. And I was fortunate to be set up next to you. So I got to hear stories from your crew, and you did awesome. So great job. And I know that you've been at this race a couple times. I was very aware of your performance at last year's 500 when you completed that. And I knew that it was a really challenging event, really tough conditions, and you excelled at that as well. So again, congratulations. So
and Valerie won outright the 500. She got out there and absolutely killed it. I driving all the way down from Michigan for a bike race in Texas heat, which actually ended up not being too hot that day, but she won outright as well. So Valerie got the 500 and 1.6, because I know that last 1.6 is brutal when you come to race a 500-mile race. In one day, was it 1 day, 11 hours, something along those lines, and beat everybody out there, including all the guys as well, in the 500 mile. And I think you took down my time from last year too. I'm pretty sure. You absolutely killed it. So
our weather was great this year. It was not as it's historically been. We really were lucky.
Just let me interrupt here to point out that at this event, we had 2 women overall winners. I don't know if that's ever happened before, But congratulations to both of you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So tell us about the course and how it goes. And were you both riding the same loop, or?
Yeah, we were both on the same loop. Valerie started earlier than me. The 500-mile, Valerie, you guys started, I think, 12 hours before we did, maybe?
Noon.
Or maybe
Noon.
No, I've got it mixed up.
Yeah, because you started at 5, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah, I thought the noon start was a really good change. Like,
okay.
night starts are always so challenging for me because you're up all day before it happens. So you're really tired when you're really not that far into the race. So I felt like the noon start was definitely a good start. So we were on the same course. And for people who aren't familiar with the Texas Time Trials course, it's fairly hilly. Nothing's terribly steep, although there are a few big hills. Nothing's really flat either. So it's pretty rural, traffic's not too heavy. My experience has generally been positive. Some of the roads are a little rough, but not terrible. So, and for the amount of elevation that there is on that course, the fact that none of them are really sharp, steep climbs, I think makes it faster than different elevation and different grades. So I don't know. I enjoy the course. This is the 5th time I entered the race, and I believe that I've ridden that course, like that 26-mile loop, more than I've ridden any loop here in Michigan, like in town. Like I think I've actually done it that much. So I'm definitely drawn to it.
And I guess that's perspective comes in because I started cycling in Corpus Christi, Texas, where it is flat as a board. And I now live in Austin. But my opinion of the course is that it's really hilly and very, it's definitely one that it's a challenge. It's one of those that when you complete your race, you really feel accomplished. Not that you don't ever after, racing for 12 or 24 hours, but personally, I felt the hills to be very challenging. And they're the kind, I didn't feel like they rolled into each other very well. Some of them did, but a lot of them are longer, not super steep like Valerie said, but they just feel like, especially, hour 20, they feel like they're lasting forever and you're never going to get to the top of it. And then they don't roll because they're longer. I mean, they're not like Colorado long. I don't know, but it's just, it's a great course. I mean, it's 26 miles and I love the fact a 26-mile loop for me, it was perfect because it was about an hour and a half, give or take, per lap, which was perfect for my nutrition and pit timing. It meant that I didn't have to take enough to get me through a full 2 hours or 3 hours in between stops. So with an hour and a half, it really helps to where you don't have to carry a lot on you, and that helps with the hills too. So the 26.5-mile loop, it's good in that the pit frequency is great, but then also you're doing a lot of laps to finish 500 miles or 24 hours.
Now, did you pit every 26 miles?
I did not. I took hand-ups. I would say probably about a third of my fueling was with hand-ups, maybe, and 2/3 was with pitting. But when I pitted, it was just a stop, a very quick put a foot down. One of them, it would be swap the lights out because we started shortly before dark. We started at 5 p.m. So I think I want to say I got 2 laps in, or we started with lights, but it's been a while and I'm trying to remember. We had to stop to switch lights out a couple times, and those were the longer stops, which, but I also took 2 bikes. So that was one of the nice things is that my crew chief, my husband, Jamie, could have the lights all hooked up on my other bike so that when I didn't have to take time to swap lights out, I could just get off one bike and onto the other. And I also found my strategy was to take 2 different types of bikes. So I had a very aggressive time trial bike. That is my actual 40K TT bike. And I didn't adjust my fit that much. But then I also had my gravel bike, which I have aero bars on, so I can get into an aero position, but it's a much less aggressive aero position, and the muscle recruitment is quite different. So I found personally with the hills, it was nice to be able to go back and forth and change up the muscle recruitment and also the pressure points on the saddle, because I learned the hard way last year in the 500 that the pressure points over that long of a time are not fun. So,
Definitely.
Yeah. So that was my experience.
Yeah, so that you bring that up, and I know we were chatting about this a little bit earlier, but that pulled me out of the last time I did the 500 mile. I completed 400 miles, and I had to pull out. It was tough. So that was back in 2017. And there were a few years that I didn't come back to Texas, but I obviously had some unfinished business, so I had to come back. I was really surprised that I was okay staying on my bike with no changes the entire time. I brought a bike with a little bit more of a relaxed fit. And my plan was, there's kind of two things I was thinking, like, it was there if I needed it. Notably, it didn't have a power meter because I was pretty sure that if I was on it, I was going to be really miserable and not to know what was going on. So I probably didn't need that piece of data, but I never used the bike. And I use an infinity saddle, which isn't for everybody, but it's been amazing. Like, I've really been able to ride longer with far fewer issues, and everyone that I know that has one, like, really loves them. So, but you will see hand feel that people don't like. So, but that's been a big change and really helpful for me.
Gotcha. So, we do have one comment. And what was the weather like during the race from Paul Stevens?
It was amazing.
Go ahead.
Like, I think it was the best weather we could have hoped for. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It wasn't too windy. There was no rain. Perfect. It wasn't too sunny. Like, it was perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just overcast and comfortable the entire time. It was great. Yeah.
Gotcha. And we've got another one coming in from Jamie Tracy. Did anyone fall asleep while riding? Not just you two, but I guess anybody else.
I didn't. I've never done that. I don't know. My adrenaline gets going so hard when I'm racing. I've never raced more than 24 hours, but I've also never, or I guess I did with the 500 mile, but I've never approached falling asleep.
Gotcha.
Do you guys know of anybody, or Valerie, do you know of anybody that may have?
I've heard about this happening. I was aware of some people taking some breaks to sleep during the 500. And I also experienced it a little bit myself in the past, where you're riding and then you kind of like do that sleep jerk and you're like, oh, this is trouble. Yep. So you like, and when that's happened, like, I've actually gotten off and just like stood for a moment and just try to like collect myself and maybe drink a little bit. But that is something that I have experienced in the past. And actually, I know Lee mentioned it briefly. I did just do a cross-state record attempt 2 weeks ago with 2 of my friends. We did it as a 3-person relay. And that was very challenging because you ride hard and then you sit for 3 hours. And it was difficult to stay up driving. Riding is okay. But driving, watching a flashing light at 2 a.m., with no sleep, that was hard. So, but yeah, I don't know. I this time I got lucky with like fatigue and managing it. So
do you guys sleep the couple of days before, or do you get on a cycle to help you ride that long?
My husband teases me about being a granny because I'm one of those people that's religious about getting enough sleep always. So a couple of days before, I probably upped it, but 9 to 10 hours of sleep because I play hard and I sleep hard.
Gotcha.
Like Valerie alluded to earlier, the 5 p.m. start is difficult because I can't sleep past. I'm a morning person. I go to bed early. I get up early. I can't sleep past 7 or 8, even when I'm trying. And so I think I've been up since about 7 o'clock that morning, and then you don't start your race till 5, and then you go for 24 hours. But I alternated bottles where one would have caffeine and then the other wouldn't. And that actually worked really well. It kept me alert enough to where I didn't get jittery, but I was super focused and alert the whole time. So
Gotcha. And we've got one on that line. We've got a question from James Eastland. What kind of hydration nutrition exactly did you use?
Valerie, you want to go first, or I
Sure,
can?
actually, this is quite a topic for me. I self-crewed, so I was there by myself. So I had to be super organized. I went down with 19 bottles that were double mixed with Tailwind, like 1 scoop of Tailwind, which has caffeine, 1 scoop of Scratch, which doesn't have caffeine in every single bottle. They were frozen solid. I put my granola bars in my cooler thinking it'd be super hot, because then I knew it'd be like putting a little ice pack in my like Jersey every app. So I had my Yeti cooler like filled, and there was no room for anything other than what I was racing with. And I had a bottle and a granola bar or two every lap. I never got behind because I knew that if I did, no one was going to help me. So there was like in past races, I've let myself get behind because I know that there have been people there helping me. They're going to feel sorry for me. They're going to give me food. They're going to pick up my pieces. But this time I was like, I can't do that. I've got to, if I slip up or if I get behind, like no one's going to help and I'm not going to do well and it's going to be disappointing. So nothing too exciting. Granola bars, I don't even think I had any fruit or broccoli, just granola bars and lots of fluids.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And I did a different. No, I gotta ask though. Broccoli is that a normal race fuel for you, Valerie?
I may have eaten 2 heads of broccoli last weekend.
Oh my god. Oh, I mean, I guess maybe that helps with the propulsion on the bike. No, I actually did a very different race strategy this year. So I'm gluten-free, and that makes fueling challenging sometimes because a lot of the typical things like cookies and that type of thing, you can't count on anybody else. Like if you run out of what you've brought, you can't count on anybody else to be able to provide you with something that you need. And so this time around, I found something a couple of months before the race. It's called Carbo Rocket Half Evil, and it's a highly caloric and high carb drink mix, similar to Tailwind, I think. But per bottle, it's got 333 calories and 82 grams of carbs, and also BCAAs and glutamine. So it's got some muscle repair kind of stuff in it as well. And I alternated that with noon hydration because in the past on that course, it's been so hot. I've gotten so dehydrated. And once you get behind behind it, you're just, there's no catching up. So every single lap, I put my Carbo Rocket in the front bottle holder because I told my husband, I'm like, no matter what, I have to get this 333 calories in every single lap, no matter what. And then if I finish or after I finish that, then I can do the noon and get the added electrolytes and added hydration, but the calories have to go first. And so I also, as a backup, I packed some gluten-free cupcakes and some trolley worms and my normal go-tos, just like the kind of food that will pull you out of a slump if you get into one that you can kind of look forward to. Like when I finish this lap, I get a gluten-free cupcake kind of thing.
Yep.
So I packed those and I'm very analytical. So when I do a training plan, I put everything in a spreadsheet and I factor in wind and temperature. And I'm saying, okay, I'm going to take this long on this lap and this long on this lap. And this is exactly what I want you to give me at the end of each lap. And I give this to my husband, who's my crew chief. And so we're like a well-oiled machine with regards to that. But I found I didn't want a single bite of food the entire time. I stayed on top of the Carbo Rocket. And with that constant, steady influx of calories, I never approached a bonk and I never got hungry. And so what would happen is I would come in and he'd have like cupcakes ready for me and they didn't look appetizing at all. And I was like, I don't want that. Just give me the bottle. I'm good. And so I don't remember now. I should have calculated it before the call, but I think I figured out that I consumed something like 9,000 calories and a whole lot of carbs over the course of the 24 hours. But it was a steady stream of calories. So I didn't ever eat a big calorie bomb. It was just sipping on the calories throughout. And I've never had my body react so well. So I think what I've joked about is that I found my secret bullet or my secret weapon.
That's awesome.
And I'm trying to figure out how I'll do this in unsupported races. Like I do long gravel races too. So I guess I'll put it in my camel pack or, yeah. But that was mine. The back and forth between the noon hydration and the carbo rocket. And during the day when it was warm, I was definitely using 2 24 to 32 ounce bottles a lap. And then overnight, I was just usually drinking 1 bottle a lap because I didn't want to overhydrate and then have to stop to pee a lot either. So,
gotcha. Excellent.
Yeah.
Great answer.
We've had 2 women overall winners in this race. We're seeing women show up as overall winners quite often. Illa Paddle from India says that if we had as many women riding in ultra events as we have men, we would probably see more women overall winners than men. What do you think?
I think women are naturally predisposed to suffering well. And also I don't know. I feel like I've read, and I don't know all of the science behind it, but that a woman's body is better at the long sustained efforts. Whereas a typical woman isn't going to be able to go head to head with a typical male in a 200-meter sprint because of sheer muscle. But over the long distance, we have the muscles that don't break down as much and can sustain that effort.
Exactly.
My opinion.
No, you're right.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's possible. I know that I think scientifically it is pretty, it's proven that as you get into longer distances, the difference in performance gets a lot less. And so much of it's mental.
Mm-hmm.
In the big mental piece there. I mean, if you look at our average speeds, to be honest, my moving average was 15.9. I think yours was substantially higher. But, even at that, those aren't unattainable speeds, for either gender, but there's a huge mental piece there. And I think that's pretty equal between the 2 genders. And I think that with, how important that is, I think it's very possible that it would be quite evenly weighted. I think it would be a huge challenge though to bring more women to cycling. That's something that is a topic often for me. As I've done some local road races, much shorter, not very many. But there always is a discussion about how to bring more women into the sport, or more recently, have more diversity and include more African-American cyclists, which I think is really important. But there are some bigger challenges like motherhood, the privilege that comes with having enough time to train to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things I think those are big challenges. And those are things that take a lot more than just money and sponsorship to fix.
Gotcha.
So, but I do see women with young children who are amazing athletes. And so it's certainly, it can happen. But there are definitely some big challenges to overcome. So
that said, I feel like personally, I've raced a lot of different disciplines, and I feel like ultra cycling is one of the disciplines that is most welcoming to women personally, because it's one, at least for we don't have children, but my husband, it's a family ordeal. I mean, we're in hashtags, we're Team Tracy, because I couldn't do what I do without his support. And so I feel like, it's one of those things where if you get the support of your family, you can make it like a family thing, and you can bring them into it and have everybody helping with crewing and that kind of thing. And also it's just, there are so many with ultra racing. I'm very rarely competing against anybody else, because you can't. Everybody that is at the top level in ultra racing knows you can't go out and race somebody else's race. You have to go out and race your own race and hold your own numbers. And so because of that, I'm constantly competing against myself and trying to improve upon my own prior performances. And that's a lot more encouraging. And I think that makes it more welcoming to a lot of women than some of the other disciplines can be at times, I guess, is one way to put it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I kind of want to add to that. I feel like there's a connection that develops between women in ultra cycling that is unlike other racing disciplines.
Very true.
It's so supportive. There's so much mutual respect, encouragement. There was another female cyclist, which in the 500, Allison, and I've seen her in Texas for several years. Actually, just about every time I rolled into the laps in the beginning of the race, I heard, "Go Allison!" And I was like, we both have brown curly hair, but one of us is a lot shorter. Like, we're not the same person. But
Valerie, I think that was me. Sorry.
That's okay. It wasn't just you, that's for sure. So I was like, honestly, like I was so excited about racing with Allison because I knew her, and I feel like, we're pretty close. Like we've been back and forth in the past with our performance. So I felt like it was going to be great to have her there for the motivation. I thought, like with our similar strength, we'd be like back and forth with laps and keep both of us riding strong. I did hope to see her more. She made me wait 26 hours to see her out on the course. I let her know. But yeah, I was super excited. And it's, obviously I don't see Allison often, only at that race, but there are other women that I see much more often at races up in the Midwest. And there's definitely a bond. And
Gotcha.
it's really special. And I think it's there for the men too. I've definitely seen some of the top performing male athletes act just as mutually supportive towards each other. Something that I don't think you see in like typical road racing. So,
definitely.
Yeah, I think just the amount of time you spend out there, if you have a competitive mindset the whole time and you just want to beat other people, I think you'll burn yourself out really quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we don't want to cut this interesting conversation off, but we got some questions out there we want to get to before we wrap it up. So
definitely, I'll bring this one up. It's kind of it's another one from James Eastland. What kind of weekly mileage hours do you have to put in during training? How long? Looking to do a 24-hour time trial. How do you train for that type of race? And that's a good one for me because we're going to do a virtual 24 here soon. So it'd be an interesting answer.
Oh man. I think we're both on pretty specific training plans. So yeah, I don't know. Christy, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I work with a coach, and ultra racing isn't the only thing I do. So it's when I'm really focusing on ultra racing and honing in for one, I'll usually try to put in around 16 to 18 hours a week. But I work full time. I work about 50 hours a week in finance. And so I can't ever get in more than about 2 hours max on a weeknight. And if I do, then it's literally get up, work, get off work, ride, get home, eat, go to bed. Like that is my entire day. And so then on the weekends, I put the longer rides in, or my coach builds in the longer rides. And so, when we're starting, we're putting in 4 and 5 hour rides, and then building up to it before the taper, I'll get a couple of 10-hour rides in. And usually they'll be, just to keep it more engaging for me, I'll ride to a group ride. So I'll ride 50 miles to a group ride. And then I'll do an 80-mile group ride, and then I'll ride another century. That way it breaks it up a little bit, and I can still get my zone work in that I need to do super steady, but I don't lose. It's not just like I'm constantly out there on my own. Now this year was different, obviously, because of COVID.
Right.
And this year, honestly, I've never gone into an ultra race so undertrained as far as hours go, but I felt more prepared than ever. I've been working a lot more on dialing in my top end for esports like Swift. And so I've been training really more than 14 hours a week max. And it was a lot more high intensity, but more mental training too. So I think you can do it a couple of different ways. I think finding a coach that learns how your body reacts to certain things, and then sticking to a program is key. Go ahead, Valerie.
Sure, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'm also coached, and it's also time-based. I've had some pretty big weeks. I think that kind of get a little bit closer to like 20 hours in training. I think I have a little bit more time in the evenings after work, like maybe up to 2.5 hours. My weekend rides, though, I don't think I'd had anything longer than 8 hours. I mean, it's hard to say like across the board, like this is, the right amount of time or like the right amount of training. One thing that really struck me this year, I was feeling really good. Like I was having some good efforts. I was enjoying them. We had like this good pattern, and then I got my next 2 weeks training plan, and like my efforts were gone. And I said something about it, but I, just put my trust in, like, things have been going well. So I'll just, stick with this. And I think that, just having someone else in their oversight, like, I think he picked up on something, and it was absolutely the right decision to take those efforts out. On my own, I probably wouldn't have had the wisdom to do that, and maybe would have overtrained, because that's really easy to do. So yeah, I don't know. I guess kind of a plug for coaching more than but just having someone with the oversight that can help you manage not just getting strong, but recovering from that.
Gotcha.
And so maybe if you, obviously not everyone's going to get a coach for, every valid reason that there is. But it's not just the miles, obviously. Just do some reading, understand your weaknesses. I think it's not difficult to identify what you're not good at. I think
Right.
most people know that pretty well.
Yeah.
So understanding that, and then understanding what of those things will benefit you to work on. Because not, like, I don't know about you, Christy. I think I'm a terrible sprinter. Like, I don't know it's really going to benefit either of us to do a lot of work on, like, 10-second sprints.
Right.
I think we can just own not being awesome with that, but maybe there are some other things that it pays to focus on, and everyone has a different recovery too. Like, I know that I saw someone post out that like they were starting to recover a week and a half before the race, and I was really surprised by that, because I was like, got some hard rides ahead of me still, but everyone's different. So I think time will tell you, and just maybe if it, just paying attention to what you've done and how it impacted you. I think there's a lot that can be learned.
Definitely. How do you guys prepare mentally for like a 24 or 500 mile?
That was actually, I was going to add on to what Valerie had said, but it was the mental part of it too. So
right.
You're not only training your body, but you're also training your mind. And that's one of the hardest parts as an athlete for me, is when I really don't feel like going out, is it my body trying to tell me that it needs rest, or is it better for me to go and push through it and build that mental strength? And that's one thing I rely a lot on my coach for, because he monitors everything, and that helps. But definitely longer rides and just the tough mental training, going out even when I don't feel like it, to a certain extent. And because you're going every single long race that you do, at least that I've ever done, you're going to have little pockets within that race that it gets dark, and you have to be able to push through.
Gotcha.
The other thing for me this year, which is completely different, was with the esports. I'd been doing a lot of really short 60-minute Zwift races with girls that are like half my age and all sprinters, and going into the pain cave and being able, it's a completely different kind of suffering, but being able to make yourself burn that last match just to hold a wheel helped me mentally so much in this race, because going into the last lap, I don't know who else is familiar with this, but Andrew Willis is a very good friend of mine. And also I look up to him. He's like the ultra god in my mind. Like, I look up to him so much and take a lot of advice from him. And he was, at one point, I had about 20 minutes on him. Going into the last lap, he was less than 30 seconds behind me. And it was the last lap of a 20, and we knew that it was the last lap. And so I went to such a dark place in my mind that I didn't think I was capable of going to, and just push harder than my body should have been able to push. And I really attribute it to that Zwift training for me. And this is very individual, but it was that just writing yourself absolutely inside out and tuning everything out and just burying yourself, because we're such good friends, but it's that friendly competition too. And I was like, dang it, Willis, I've been in front of you for 23 hours. I am not going to let you catch me at 23:30, you know?
There you go.
So
Gotcha.
That's me.
Okay. And Leah Zoe Thorwaldson asked a couple of good questions. Here's one of them, since you mentioned Zwift. And I know it's kind of a touchy subject with a lot of people on Zwift. I don't know if you want to answer or not. It's up to you. I'll take that as you don't want to answer.
What's the question?
The question. I didn't know if you can't see it. That's right. Basically, do you think there are any women currently racing in Zwift's Premier League that are not legit? You don't have to name names, just yes or no. And we all know they're out there. I ride Zwift a lot, so.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, I kind of get it, but yeah, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you train virtually? I know Christie does, but do you, Valerie?
No, I don't do anything that's like group rides. I really just stick to my plan. And I use full gas for the visuals.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So I actually kind of wanted to touch on a little bit on the mental.
Okay.
Was something that was my biggest takeaway from this race. And I think that a lot of it was supported by being stronger and being organized and systematic physically to get through this race. But I was never in a bad mood, like literally never in a bad mood for 35 hours straight.
That's great.
That's amazing. When I stopped, when I was done, when I was driving home, like I was pretty emotional about it, because every race I've done, I've prepared or expected to have a lot of doubt and feel lonely and, question, like at some point in time, just go to that place. And I never did. And so, to prepare mentally, I've noticed about myself, people have their ups and downs in life. You have periods that are extra stressful with your relationships or work or whatever, what have you. But to realize that, I thought I was doing pretty well, but then to just kind of have that experience, was something that I was incredibly thankful for. And it was just really real self-discovery. I mean, this whole trip was like that for me. It was a 1,200 mile drive each way. I did it by myself, and I did a lot of exploration, a lot of hiking. It took some time. It was, just had a lot of personal time. It was my little solo adventure. But yeah, it was really an amazing experience from start to finish, the whole trip, the whole race.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to start to wind this thing down a little bit, Jim. We've got some other comments and questions out there, but we've had a very interesting conversation. I see one person down there saying hello.
Yeah, Giovanni.
Giovanni, and we just mentioned that he's going to be on our next show next Sunday. Let's see, at 8 p.m. Is that correct, Jim?
That is correct.
25th, that Giovanni will be on here live, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you all for your questions and your observations. Thank you, Valerie, for being with us. Thank you, Christie.
Thank you, guys.
Yes,
and of course, we thank Jim for being here as well.
Thank you,
Jim. I think we've had a very, very interesting conversation, don't you?
I do too. This has been one of my favorite shows so far. So it's been a very good experience.
And to have these two great ladies who have made their mark in ultra cycling with us, we appreciate that a lot. Not to cut you off, but my nickel's about ready to run out here. So we better say good night to everyone.
All right.
We'll see you again Sunday evening, Jim.
Definitely,
with
sir.
Giovanni. We're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you for having me.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.